Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the World Manila podcast. I am your host, co-founder, or founder, excuse me, and director of World Manila, Ramon Rodrigo Calacuenca, CFA. And today's episode is going to be about the media, the Philippine media in particular. Oops, excuse me. Um, this episode is about the Philippine media in particular and about quote unquote manipulation. I use that word in quotations because sometimes it's not like the media is trying to manipulate you um, on purpose, but maybe it's just a lack of quality journalism. Anyways, I'm going to talk about two cases today with local Philippine media that I wanted to highlight, and basically these two pieces of news came out, or not even news, but media came out, I think last week or the week before, and they sort of aggravated me because they were both being shared, at least in my social sphere, uh, in my uh, in my Facebook wall, for example, or timeline or newsfeed, um, and it's just an example of why we can't always. I mean, these two are examples of why we can't always trust what even passes as professional journalism in this country. Um, and I don't mean to sound to be so. I mean, I don't mean to sound or be so harsh, but I think this is an important issue to discuss. All right, so let's go to the first piece of media I wanted to talk about today. Um, this is about this is actually a news piece. So it says in this is an article that came out in the Philippine Star on the 6th of March. 11 of 15 cities in Southeast Asia with cleanest air are in the Philippines, from a report. So this is basically citing a report from the Switzerland-based IQ Air Visual and Greenpeace's 2018 air quality report. So basically, um, the reported air quality in the Philippines in this report, if you look at it at face value, is that it's better than Manila and some other cities in the Philippines have better air quality than Singapore, which I find really hard to believe. Um, and I knew was didn't sound right because I had actually looked into air quality here in the Philippines previously, and I knew that couldn't be right. So. Uh, Anyways, this news headline was shared around. It went viral on social media. I even saw like other news outlets and publications quoting it. I think I saw something from like Esquire Philippines, for example. The problem with this report that this article is citing is that if you actually read, and you know what, I'll link to the actual report for you guys. And I think I don't think I posted it on my First of Manila Facebook page, but at least on my personal Facebook page, I did post the actual excerpt from the report. So there's an excerpt there's a part of that report that this Philstar article is citing that is basically a footnote that says that data in Southeast Asia is very sparse, and the note specifically highlighted the Philippines as one of the examples. So it highlighted the Philippines as one of the examples of a place where there is zero government support for air quality monitoring, and a lot of it's being just self-reported by independent people or concerned groups. So basically, what that's saying is there's no real quality checking or standardization of air quality measures across the globe. So that almost makes this report a null, at least in the Southeast Asian region, a null, a moot point. But this article, um, for example, this 11 to 15 cities in Southeast Asia with cleanest air in the Philippines, it doesn't mention that important footnote that the data is basically not reliable. So people get the wrong idea, and I saw people sharing this article on my Facebook timeline, just like this can't be right. And then I found the footnote. So, and to be fair, like I think a day later on, Interaction published a what's this on the March 7. Um, they published this report that um, um, that highlighting this technicality that the basically that the report's not reliable. So this is introduction. Philippine cities high air quality rank due to lack of pollution monitoring systems. So the headline explains it all. So at least a day later, there was some proper fact checking going on. But what bothers me is that like this first article didn't come from like it's not like from a fake news outlet. This is from the Philippine Star, which is purportedly a quality journalism. And if this passes for quality journalism, I don't know. Like I begin to doubt things in the way things are reported in our media. So, and I think this is very important. And this is why I'm making a whole episode out of this in my podcast. So that's one thing. Um, a few days later, people were sharing this article by Beto Campo. So he's like this quote unquote pop historian here. He's definitely the most famous historian publicly. I don't know how other the quality of him as an actual historian, but he's definitely the best at promoting himself. Um, and this is called the indolence of the Filipino. So basically, Ambeth is here. He's sort of criticized, or he is criticizing Ramon Tulfo's rant that that were basically lazy and they're compared to the hardworking Chinese laborers who are coming over here. And Tulfo apparently tweeted that to those who have been bashing me, read Jose Rizal's essay about the indolence of the Filipino in his time. Thank you. And so Humberto Ocampo says that uh, Tulfo hasn't read beyond the essay title. So according to Humberto Ocampo, here I'm going to read from what Humberto Ocampo wrote. Sobre la indolencia de los Filipinos is a very long and at times angry essay by Rizal that saw print in La Solidaridad in March 1890. From abroad and across time, Rizal reacted to the charge from the Spanish colonial masters that Filipinos were indolent or lazy. Rizal did not condemn it, but rather he explained it. Blah, 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 blah. This is a part that really got me. So far, I mean, he does say things that are correct, but this is the part that really got me. It is a Spaniard who is lazy, argued Rizal, as they detest manual labor and live surrounded by Filipino servants who not only exist to take off their shoes for them, but even to fan them, right? And then his analysis as a physician and historian led to primary sources that proved Filipinos in pre-Spanish times were not so. So, indolence in the Philippines is a chronic malady, but not a hereditary one. The Philippines have not always been what they are. See, the problem with this is that because, and this is one reason why I'm so pro Spanish language in the Philippines, is that because the majority of even our educated people can't read Spanish anymore, they can't read the exact essay that Rizal wrote, and you have to rely on people like Ocampo who can mix in their own agenda and sort of sway people's points of view. If you actually read Sobre la indolencia de los Filipinos, it's not this black and white thing where Filipinos are hardworking until the Spanish came over, and the Spanish are the ones who are lazy. That's the gist. That's the sense you get from reading Beto Campo's write-up. But that's not how. See, Rizal is much more smarter than that. It's not a black and white thing. I'll read you some passages, and again I'll post a link to the actual essay if you want to read it. Learn your Spanish, of course. Um, Rizal makes a much more nuanced, and you're right. I mean, Ocampo is right that he does get angry at this in this article, and it is very long. But he makes a very nuanced point, was that people behave based on incentives. So Rizal does say that there are records showing that pre-colonial Filipinos were known to be hardworking. So that does exist. But he does talk about how the tropics make you, you know, it's harder to work when you're in a tropical country compared to another country. But it goes much deeper than that because he doesn't say anything talking about saying that the Spanish are the ones who are lazy. He like never says that. That's ridiculous. I think the passage that Ocampo is referring to is it's a font which I'll read. Um, Let me see. Um, Let me just look for it. I actually took a lot of I took a lot of notes from here from the article. Hmm. Give me a second. My apologies. It's a very long essay, and I took a lot of extracts, but I'm trying to find the one he's talking about here. Okay, so I'm just gonna read a couple of things in Spanish and then translate it for you in English. El clima cálido exige del individuo la quietud y el descanso, así como el frío le excita al trabajo y la acción. So basically, the hot climates. This is Rizal writing. Uh, Makes people basically makes an individual uh, more relaxed or tired, whereas the cold will make them work more. I remember, and reading passages like this, I remember someone saying that Lee Kuan Yew of Singapore apparently said that a lot of Singapore's success is because of its air conditioning. I don't know if that's true, but it's worth thinking about. Anyways, continuing. Los mismos europeos que tanto acusan de indolencia a los hombres de las colonias, so those same Europeans, not Spanish in particular, who accuse so much of indolence, people in the colonies. See, and he says here, y no hablo ya de los españoles, sino de los mismos alemanes e ingleses, right? And I'm not talking here even about the Spanish. But the German and English. See, he specifically says that he's just talking about Europeans in general. Como viven en los países tropicales, rodeados de una numerosa servidumbre, no nada más a pie sino en coche. So surrounded. So how do these Europeans live in tropical countries? They're surrounded by servants. They never walk by foot, but by cart or car. Uh, Necesitando de sus criados no solo para quitarse las botas, sino aún para maquinarse. So they need their servants not only just to remove their boots, but also to fan them. So, anyways, that's basically. I mean, I can go on and on, but he's basically saying that it's the that climate that Europeans are being hypocritical when they go to tropical country they have a very lazy attitude as well. So he does talk about a lot of things. I mean, um, so he actually goes into long length. Rizal goes into long length about why if pre-colonial times Filipinos were hardworking, what happened to them? Well, basically it goes down to incentives. Like they fight wars for Spain. They defend the colony. Apparently they fought the Dutch. Apparently, I didn't even know about that. And they're also forced. There's also basic tantamount to forced labor, just lack of incentives for them to work hard. So those are the other. Aside from the tropic, it's basically tropics and colonialism. He also does, of course, criticize the friars. So it's a very, very long answer, but if I had to distill it down, that's basically what he's talking about. And beneath all of that is that incentives matter. So that's an argument from economics, and I don't know how popular or how developed economics was at the time of Rizal, but that's basically the cornerstone of modern economics. Like people respond to incentives. Incentives matter. I'm looking for another. He says something that's where it's not. It's universal. Uh, let's see. Mm, sí, alright. El mal no está en que la indolencia exista más o menos latente, sino en que se la frecuentemente exagera.
En los hombres, así como en las naciones, no solo existen aptitudes, sino también tendencias hacia el bien y el mal. Fomentar las buenas, etc., etc., etc. So what he's saying here is basically, it's not bad that indolence exists. It's more or less latent, it exists. But it's more when you foment it or you exaggerate it. That's basically what he's saying. I'm roughly translating what he's saying. In people, in mankind, in men, also as in nations, uh, aptitudes don't just exist, but also tendencies towards good and bad. So this is a very universal. This is a argument about human beings. So this sort of, and this is great. I mean, I'm so proud to be Filipino and have someone like this as our national hero, because he's just thinking maybe even way ahead of his time. Because if you think about it, this was written in what, the 1880s, 1890s. People in general are much more racist back then. So it's great that that people like Rizal can think on a more universal scale, or or a more global scale, and on a more fundamental scale of what it means to be a human. But you don't get that from this read up by Umberto Campo. It just comes across like, oh, it's the Spaniards who are evil and the Philippines are actually hardworking. It's terrible, and anyways, it's again creating this, because this is an historian, he's telling us our history there, and it ties into our identity. It's not correct, and as many of you know from my previous podcasts, I'm against this kind of thinking. I want a more inclusive view of what it means to be Filipino, and I don't want it to be based on racial grounds. And if you know me, I tend to agree with what people like Rizal, or at least the way I interpret Rizal, was that uh, he was, and he was anti-colonialism, anti-friar, but he was pro-Philippines, but he was also pro-Spain. I generally share those views. So pro-Philippines, pro-Spain, anti-colonialism. So yeah, and again, it goes back to our identity, and really again building an identity that should be based on values and not on ethnicity. Because again, what is a Filipino? I would like to bring to some of you who have been listening to me for a while now, that comic I shared a few episodes ago, by Josh Luna, like, who is a pure Filipino, right? Maybe it's Ayeta people. They're the first ones here, apparently. So, again, going back to this episode's theme is about whether how much is exploring how much we can trust our so-called real news, or how much can we really trust at least some of our journalists and historians. So I'm not saying they're all like this, but I would advise you, dear listener, to approach things with a critical eye, just in general, not even just Philippine media, but in general with any kind of media. But especially for a poor country like the Philippines, there's in terms of um, quality reporting, or journalism or storyism, there's not we don't have a strong educated middle class that should form the backbone of that. So I would advise you to be always critical about these things, and maybe be skeptical about a lot of things. All right. Oh, scrolling down the wrong notes here. Today's Tagalog Spanish vocab. So, kaalaman, that's knowledge, kaalaman. El conocimiento, kaalaman. Katalinuhan, intelligence. La inteligencia, katilinuhan. And the third vocab. So I'm giving you three today, with this episode. Pananari nari. Panari nari nari. Is that correct? Pananari-nari. Pananari-nari. I've never heard this. I've never heard this word before. It's very deep. It's very malalim for me, but I'm trying to say nuance. Because you have to understand nuance. We should always understand nuance and not approach things with a black and white point of view or reductionism, which is what you might see in these two articles I've shared with you. I've shared with you today. So nuance, pananari, pananari-nari, 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 pananari. Tagalog is such a hard language. Pananari-nari. 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 There we go. Pananari-nari. So nuance in English. El matiz in Spanish. El matiz. Nuance. We have to be aware of nuance or matiz or pananari-nari. Pananari-nari. Panari-nari. Pananari-nari. Pananari-nari. There we go. So beware of nuance, matiz, or pananari-nari. All right. Please laugh at me for that. Okay. I will see you all in 2 weeks. In the meantime, please follow me on social media. On Instagram and Facebook. You can see some of my artwork that I'm doing there for World Manila. All right. That's it. Take care. Next time. See you in 2 weeks. Ciao.